Hi guys, Ivan here. In this little presentation I want to introduce the concept of a vulnerability scanner. This presentation includes some slides and followed by a demonstration. So let's zoom in. This picture highlights typical vulnerabilities in different stacks. So from the bottom up we have vulnerability in the TCP/IP stack that will be fixed usually by the vendor. We have vulnerabilities in the daemons, so that was also fixed in the vendor. You can misconfigure the keys, SSL stuff, so you can harden it. You can use vulnerable libraries, so there are vulnerabilities in vulnerable libraries. So a developer needs to patch and use latest libraries. Or we introduce vulnerabilities in our own code, so we need to apply a secure programming paradigm. And of course, there could be insufficient monitoring and alerting, and we need to address the forensic readiness criteria. To check for these vulnerabilities, one can use Nmap to find hosts and ports and services, and also by the scripting engine to find vulnerabilities. And there is a so-called vulnerability scanner. A vulnerability scanner is covering more than Nmap, and that's what this presentation is about. There are dedicated scanners as well, for example MS, Application Mass Scanner, or SQL Map tool, a Linux tool that will help you find SQL injections. Or SSLI is a little Linux tool that will help you check the TLS settings, or DNS enum that will help you figuring out vulnerabilities in the DNS server. But for today we talk about vulnerability scanners like Nessus, OpenVAS or Qualys. Okay, the vulnerability scanning, when I started doing vulnerability scans, that was in 1999. That tool was used called SATA, System Administration Tool for Analyzing Networks. Maybe not the best name for a security tool, however, it was one of the first scanners available. It was open source and based on Linux. Later on, so in the history, let's say in 2000-2005, the Retina network scanner was quite popular, followed by the ISSS security scanner that was later merged to the IBM X-Force team. Saint is another vulnerability scanner that became open source. And so in the vulnerability scanning techniques, we divide into host OS scanning versus network security scanning. A host security scan is usually run on the host itself, so it's a tool you run on an Active Directory or on a Linux Ubuntu server or whatever, and you run it locally. So Microsoft is providing the baseline security analyzer. That's a local host tool you can run on a Microsoft platform to check locally for patches and vulnerabilities. On Linux there is several tools like Linenum or LinePS or Linus, and you can actually start or install these on the Hacking Lab Live CD by installing opt-install hl-linux-security. So all these three tools will then get installed. A network security scanner is a more in-depth remote attack methodology. You check the stack that, as being set, will be patched by updating the OS application server, let's say Tomcat, Nginx, Node.js, whatever. It's also usually patched by updating the OS libraries that you need to make sure you use latest libraries in your software. Your own app, that OWASP Top 10 for example, is a help to create secure code, and then usually it goes to the next server, to the next layer in an infrastructure. In the simplest approach, a network in a vulnerability scanner, you scan the host from your client computer, so you run the scanner on your host locally, and you scan the intranet or the DM set or whatever you want to scan. There are more advanced setups where a network vulnerability scanner is having the concept of agents, so you're going to install those agents and you're only kind of trigger the agents to do the scans. So this has the advantage as a perimeter firewall will not destroy this kind of scan, because the perimeter firewall may drop any packets that would be allowed inside of a network. And of course, these days with the cloud architecture, we have the opposite, so that the agents are communicating to a cloud environment, and the pen tester, the security researcher, is using the cloud infrastructure to trigger those scans. That was it from a theory point of view. So let's zoom into a more practical approach. So the vulnerability scanner as well is doing the inventory of the network, doing connectivity checks and doing checks against the CVEs. The common vulnerability database does some application vulnerability scanning and does the verification. Okay, we have one of these scanners is available in Hacking Lab. It's called the Nessus Vulnerability Scanner. So if you click on that, you have on the upper right corner, you have access to the virtual machine. You can log in with Hacker 10 and the password Compass. I think you can also log in with Hacker 11, Hacker 12, Hacker 13 and so forth. But you must understand this scanner is only available within the Hacking Lab ecosystem. So you cannot scan internet hosts with this scanner, because the firewall in Hacking Lab will prevent outgoing traffic. So it is only to identify vulnerabilities within the Hacking Lab. So let me open this URL, open a new tab, and it's a self-signed certificate. Okay. You log in with Hacker 10 or Hacker 11 or whatever you want. So I choose Hacker 10, password is Compass, and this will open up the graphical user interface of this scanner. You can ignore the warnings, so the feed is a little bit outdated, but for the purpose of scanning vulnerable components in Hacking Lab, that's sufficient. These are scans that has been run by others. By running a scan, you click on New Scan. Say, okay, what type of scan you want. Let's say an advanced setup. You choose a name. I'm video, some text, comments, and here you enter a list of IP addresses you want to scan. So the targets you need to, so whenever you want to find out a common vulnerability in one of the Hacking Lab servers, you can use that one, and you save it and you run it. So let's say I want to check, let's go back for a sec. Going back to the overview page. Here to the Hack Lab. Let's say in the exploiting we have another machine, the Metasploit VM, and let's say I want to scan this one. Copy this one. You can add the IP address or the full qualified domain name, and you save your scan. Of course, you can change the policy as well, but once you have it configured, you can click the launch button here, and now the system, Nessus will scan the system for vulnerabilities. This takes a while, so I did already a test before, so that we don't need to wait. So this is the scan I did before for this IP address. So as you can see here, you have many vulnerabilities listed and remediations and so forth. So that was it for today. As you should remember, Nessus is a built-in or a vulnerability scanner that is available in Hacking Lab. You cannot scan out IP addresses out of Hacking Lab. It's only within the Hacking Lab ecosystem, but you can use to identify common vulnerabilities in Hacking Lab. Okay, thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.